Okay, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at Peacemaker Season 1, developed for HBO Max by James Gunn. The first episode that we're talking about is written and directed by James Gunn and takes place 5 months after the events of the Suicide Squad. Christopher Smith, Peacemaker, once again played by John Cena, wakes up from his coma only to be drafted into another Black Ops operation, this time known as Project Butterfly, which is secretly being helmed by Amanda Waller's chosen successor, by Amanda Waller's handpicked team that includes the characters of Morn, Abadeo, Economicus, Economa, I can't pronounce Steve Aggee's character from the Suicide Squad, John, and or Diebeard, and this character called Horkut. They're pretty much being forced / tasked to work with Peacemaker as he's being put on a mission to kill a senator for reasons we don't know yet. Basically, the first episode of Peacemaker does a really good job at establishing the show's tone and storyline. Right off the bat, this first episode has those James Gunn signatures with his off-the-wall, off-color humor, characters that are a lot of fun, dialogue that can be both droning and a little too much, and also kind of clever in a lot of ways. Like James Gunn, to me, when it comes to his comedic writing, he can have a joke and it can be really funny, but then he can have a tendency to kind of hammer that joke to the point where it stops being funny and it's like, okay, we got to move on from this now. But I actually really do like James Gunn as a writer. He does have good writing. He's really good at mapping out his stories to match his style of comedy. And so far, episode 1 of Peacemaker did a good job at doing that. I like the cast so far. John Cena, I liked him as Peacemaker in the Suicide Squad movie, and I like him in the show. I like how we're getting to know more about Peacemaker as a character. Like in Suicide Squad, we just know him as a guy who would do anything to complete a mission, and he fights for peace. But he does it in the most gray, in the most black and white thing with no gray. In the show, we actually get some interest in the show. In the first episode, so far, we get first 2 episodes, I should say. We get some introspective moments into Peacemaker's head. We find out that he has an estranged relationship with his father. We find out that he acts like an asshole because he's afraid to get close to people. And this is very evident when he's locked away in his room, listening to music and slapping himself, because he even says, like, you know, the character of Greybeard can be his friend, but he's too busy pushing him away and making fun of him instead of opening up and actually acting like a good guy. You know, the character of Peacemaker, the way the first 2 episodes have handled him is that he has the potential to be a good guy. His assholery of an attitude is what keeps him, is what prevents him. And the fact that he has a really bad relationship with his dad, played by Robert Patrick, named Augie. Pretty much Augie was the one who created Chris to become Peacemaker, in a sense. You know, very abusive towards him, has a racist attitude towards him, doesn't approve of anything he does. They don't get along. The father dislikes his son in a lot of ways. And when you get to the end of episode 2, he pretty much gets framed for a crime that his son committed. And now he's locked away in Bellevue, but it's revealed that he used to be a costume hero, vigilante or whatever, known as the White Dragon. So I'm actually very curious to see how that gets expanded upon as the show goes forward. But in episode 1, you know, like I said, it does a lot of establishing all these relationships. So we get this character of Adrian Chase, known as the Vigilante. He's established to be like a Peacemaker fanboy. Then episode 2, we find out that he's a hardcore vigilante, to the point where he will kill you just for even doing graffiti, which is ridiculous. Like, he pretty much has a warped sense of what justice really is. But I like the chemistry between Christopher Smith and Adrian Chase so far. They have this one scene where they're going back and forth about Vigilante showing his dick to Chris, and Chris comparing it to Louis C.K. Like, at first, the joke was funny, but like I mentioned earlier, James Gunn has a tendency to run his jokes into the ground where it stops being funny, and then you're like, okay, can we move past this? It's like the first minute of the joke was really funny. Then you kept it going, and now you're draining it and you're dragging it, and it's not funny anymore. Like, he's got to learn. Like, James Gunn has to know when a joke works, don't drag it out, because then it stops being funny. Now, other people will be different. They'll think that whole exchange was hilarious. Me, I got tired of it after the first minute. It's like, okay, we got to move on from this. But that's just how I feel personally. But I do like the established camaraderie / partnership that Peacemaker and Vigilante are going to have throughout the course of the show. And I like how it was established in episode 2. So that stuff was good. The supporting characters so far, I like them. John Economicus, he's pretty much this character known as Diebeard. He and Peacemaker have like little friction back and forth, with Peacemaker constantly making fun of him because he dyes his beard. That joke is actually funny, and whenever it happens, and I like how James Gunn was able to tie that into Chris not being able to form bonds with people. And I also like how he's expressing regret and remorse for killing Rick Flag. And when Rick Flag told him Peacemaker, what a joke, I like how that really stays in Chris's head. Like, you're supposed to be Peacemaker, yet you're making a mockery out of it. Like, I really like how that's starting to affect him and making him feel more of a real character. In terms of the action sequences so far, I like it. It's done fairly well. At the end of episode 1, Peacemaker has a fight with this superwoman who he meets at a bar after he screws her, and then they get into a fight after she reads a dossier that he has, and then he ends up vaporizing her with his helmet, which is actually pretty cool. And then at the beginning of episode 2, he's basically running away from the cops, and he's hiding in this couple's house, in this couple's apartment, and the couple just bickers back and forth at one another. But the payoff at the end of episode 2 is the wife having a threesome with Peacemaker and Vigilante, which I thought was actually kind of hilarious. And like members of Team Peacemaker, aside from Steve Adge's character, I thought they're fine. The character of Horkut, she's coming across as a bit of a bitch. I think as the show progresses, we're going to get more insight into her as to why she's a little disarmingly cold. And you got the character of Leota, who was revealed in episode 1 to be the daughter of Amanda Waller. She's pretty much there in secret to keep tabs on everyone. But also in the first episode, she kind of developed a little bit of a friendly bond with Peacemaker. So I'm curious to see how that develops throughout the course of the season. And then you have the character of Morn, who is basically in charge of the team in Project Butterfly. He's kind of like the male version of Amanda Waller, so to speak. So that's his purpose of the show so far. So yeah, in terms of the first 2 episodes, I like what I'm seeing so far. I think James Gunn has written pretty much. James Gunn wrote the entire show. So, excuse me. So in terms of the writing of the first episodes, I think it's really good. It does a good job at establishing where Peacemaker is after the events of Suicide Squad. It also does a really good job at getting into his head and him feeling remorse and regret for killing Rick Flag. And it could put him on. And it's leading to him going on a path of redemption and kind of moving away from his Punisher-esque style and maybe being closer to more of a hero, and maybe even dumbing down on his dickish attitude to not being so much of a dick, but without completely turning his character around to the point where it's unrecognizable. So yeah, so far, first episodes, I'm enjoying the show. I like it so far. To me, episodes 3 and 4 of Peacemaker they're fun. I think these episodes are absolutely just downright fun with a lot of good things in it. So I'm not going to waste no time. So brief surmise of episode 3. Peacemaker and the gang are basically going to assassinate this senator that Peacemaker's been tasked to kill because he's suspected of being a butterfly. Now, up to this point, they've been mentioning butterflies and that Peacemaker's mission is to kill butterflies, but we don't know what a butterfly is. So during episode 3, we kind of get the general idea of what a butterfly is. Basically, a butterfly is just an alien. It's just another alien that Peacemaker has to go up against. Though Peacemaker didn't really go up against Starro and the Suicide Squad, he's dealing with another alien threat. He's dealing with another alien threat. Now it's not really specified exactly what kind of influence a butterfly will have on a human host, but we do know that it pretty much makes their hosts pretty much makes them subservient in a way. I think it also gives them enhanced strength. I'm not entirely sure. I can't really quote. I don't really remember. I'm not entirely sure. It looks like it does. But But basically, a butterfly is an alien. Alien that's hosting humans. Hence, why they got to kill the senator. Now, what makes episode 3 to me really, really good? So the whole episode is built around Peacemaker trying to kill this senator, and he fails to do so because the senator has children, and Peacemaker, he's kind of put off by that a little bit. Like, he doesn't want to kill the little kids. And a character even brings up to him, well, isn't that part of your mantra? Any man, woman, or child must go down. But then he's like, yeah. Then it's almost as if he's trying to give an answer of it's a little bit more complicated than that type of situation. So I like this. I actually like this development for Peacemaker for Christopher Smith as a character, because he's starting to see the flaws in his logic in a way, and it's inching him closer to being a better person, but without fully changing who he is, which I can appreciate and which I like, because I like Peacemaker as the likable douchebag that he is. But he's a likable douchebag who's got a heart. I already mentioned he's kind of like the Punisher in a way, in which his moral code is not as in which his moral code isn't as gray, isn't as black and white as people think it is. There's some gray area there. But so I like the whole conflict that he has. I actually like the budding relationship that he has with Harcourt. They actually have a nice sentimental moment where they're talking about their fathers and how their fathers were the first people to put weapons in their hands. No, I like that little moment. I like that little moment between the two. A little introspective moment that actually is starting to, the character of Harcourt is starting to break that bitchy demeanor down, and she's starting to become a real person. And the show is kind of sort of teasing at the fact that Peacemaker wants to get in something with Harcourt. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it doesn't go down the cliche route of them actually being in a love relationship. I don't know, but I like this stuff so far. The stuff with Leota, it's fine. She's still the only person that Peacemaker actually likes out of the entire group. When you actually look at it, they have a little bit of a bond. She actually comes into play more in the 4th episode, which I'll get to in a second. But for what she did in the episode 3, there's a nice there's a nice running gag where Murmur, the lead boss, he's doing a slideshow presentation, and you accidentally see Leota's wife's private parts, and Peacemaker just goes all out ballistic in terms of just making fun of this poor woman. So and there's like this whole running gag. She doesn't know what WhatsApp is, and she didn't think that WhatsApp photos were saved to her photo bank. That's actually a pretty funny gag. It's one of the funnier gags that James Gunn wrote in the show that he didn't overly didn't overly extend its welcome. Actually, episode 3 has 2 gags that I thought were actually really funny. There's another gag with the character Vigilante. So before I get to that, so Peacemaker, they do the whole assassination thing, but Peacemaker is afraid to pull the trigger. So Vigilante, who's not part of the team, he's the one who ends up taking out the senator's family, except for the senator himself. This causes another character called Judo Master, who is introduced in episode 3, who is more or less like a bodyguard to Goff. Judo Master appears. You have a nice little fight scene until he's taken out by economists, but with the trailer, which I thought was actually pretty funny. So, but all that being said, once Judo Master takes down everybody, he kidnaps Vigilante and Peacemaker, ties him up, and Goff is torturing Vigilante. And the entire time, Vigilante's saying, "Don't cut off my pinky toe, because the pinky toe is the most important part of the human body. And if I don't have a pinky toe, I'm going to lose my balance and fall on my face." And there's this whole running gag of him being obsessed with not losing his pinky toe. And there's this funny line where he's like, "Listen, man, you suck at torturing because your blades are dull as shit." It's like stuff when James Gunn is writing is on point and he's not stretching out a joke longer than it's welcome. That's where his comedic talents really starts to shine. And to me, episode 3 is a nice example of that. It's a good example. It's a nice showcase of the graphic violence that he can do, and the off the wall comedy that 9 times out of 10 I love that he does, because I like James Gunn's sense of humor. It's very similar to mine. That black dark comedy type of humor that I have just think is absolutely fun. But yeah, towards the end of the episode, we find out what a butterfly is. It's inside a golf. It's possessing him. After Peacemaker blows his head off, we see it spread its wings and fly away. And that's basically the end. Episode 4 more or less focuses on Peacemaker finding out that Argus had set up his dad to go to jail. Peacemaker tries to talk to his dad about this, but it doesn't work out that well. Pretty much, Peacemaker's dad calls him a simp, calls him a pussy, calls him this and calls him that. And this is where we get a really good scene between Leota and Vigilante, where Leota pretty much says that Peacemaker deep down is a good guy, but he's shackled down by his father, who is not a good guy. Peacemaker's father, he's a white supremacist, he's a racist, he's a scumbag piece of shit. And we find out at the end of this episode that he pretty much was training his son to kill from a young age. So in a way, Christopher Smith never had a chance because of the situation that he was in. And we see, and when you watch the show, you can see that there is a lot of good in Peacemaker as a human being. He just was not brought up that way, but he does have a good heart. He just doesn't know how to express that heart. And I like how we get more of that in episode 4. His relationship with Leota is expanded upon a little bit more in episode 4, which I really, really like. Leota pretty much indirectly telling Vigilante to kill Peacemaker's dad was actually pretty funny. And the way he goes about it was actually pretty cool. And I like the little mini scene he has when he takes out Augie's henchmen while in jail. I thought that was also really well done. And you have this subplot of Judo Master being held captive by Argus. And he gets let loose, and he and Peacemaker have a little chase scene until he gets shot. And at the end of the episode, it's revealed that Merman is a butterfly himself, because he has the characteristics of a butterfly. So it's very interesting to see how that's going to play out now in the remaining 4 episodes of the show. So all in all, I think episodes 3 and 4 are actually really well done story-wise. We get a lot of good moments with Peacemaker. We get the deep dive more into his character, which is what I like. The action sequences with both episodes are a lot of fun. The humor is on point. The jokes aren't at first. The jokes were starting to drag a little bit with certain gags, but now they're starting. Now they're starting to come into their own, and you're getting a lot of good ones. And like I said, cannot wait to see what the rest of the show holds. What the rest of the show has in store. Okay, so episodes 5 and 6 of Peacemaker continued the hot streak of just really good episodes so far. Now, I had already liked episodes 1 and 2, but once 3 and 4 happened, that's when the show really started to pick up steam, and 4 and 5 just cemented that. And 5 and 6 just cemented that, with 5 being my favorite episode out of the whole season thus far. What I like about episode 5, is the camaraderie between Peacemaker and his teammates really starts to grow with this. And not only that, the character of Leota, she actually starting to become a more interesting character to me. I mean, she's established as Amanda Waller's daughter, and she has this whole thing of being tasked of planting evidence in Peacemaker's planting fake evidence that can be harmful to Peacemaker. But throughout the course of the show thus far, her and Peacemaker have developed a real bond, and that shows later on in this episode where they have a drink together, and Peacemaker pretty much opens up his heart to her, and you're starting to see the conflict in Leota, especially when you get to the end of episode 5. A big revelation also comes her way, so she's becoming a very interesting character to me, and I actually liked her from the beginning. I like the actress who's playing Leota. I like her story of her having a wife, and the show, and James Gunn, to his credit, has not shoved down your throat that she's a lesbian, because they're played as a real couple, and not as a couple who they're played as just a gay couple. They're not played as like, hey, look at us, we're this and that. No, they're a gay couple. They're a couple who just happen to be gay, and I like how it's been handled so far, because they feel like real people. And Leota feels like a real person to me throughout the show so far, especially when you get to the end of the episode and revelations that take place. But before I get to that, let me just give you the highlights of episode 5 that I really liked. Like I said, what makes this episode work is that Peacemaker and his teammates, they're starting to bond. They had a nice bonding moment throughout this entire episode, and it really worked for me. Like, it felt like it's like Peacemaker, in a way, it's like Peacemaker is starting to get friends in a way, and I enjoyed it. Like his friction with John Economist pretty much started to be smoothed over a little bit. Now they're in the formations of possibly having a real friendship. You know, they started bonding over music. And then there's this big fight scene with the giant gorilla where the gorilla wipes out almost everyone. And then Economist comes in with the save with a chainsaw, instantly earning Peacemaker's respect because he did something badass. You know, and then you have this cool scene where they're all driving away from the bottle factory, and Hardcore takes a selfie of everyone. So I like it. It's the formations of a real team, and now they're called the 11th Street Kids, which is a play on a song or a band. I'm not sure. So all that stuff is fantastic. I like it. I like it a lot. The performances, these guys really gel together when they're just acting like real people, and those bonding moments are happening. I enjoyed it a lot. I really like it. I already mentioned the stuff with Leota. Now that I got that out of the way, Leota, as I said, she's Amanda Waller's daughter, and she's there to plant evidence that can link Peacemaker to something more, something to the alien invasion that's going on right now. So basically, Leota is having a conflict with this because she doesn't really want to do it, and it's putting a strain on her, which is in essence putting a strain on her marriage. So she pretty much goes to HQ to let out some steam. No, as a gag, she's trying on Peacemaker's helmet, and she finds out that Myrn has been infected by the butterflies, but and now she has a big secret, and this is what actually leads into episode 6. Yes, so Leota finds out that Myrn is possessed by a butterfly, but this butterfly is not here to hurt Leota or anyone. Basically, the lead butterfly, the butterflies came to Earth as like an exodus because the lead butterfly wants to have world domination. It's a superhero show. At the end of the day, all the alien villains want world domination or the decimation of Earth or stuff like that. Hence, why the butterfly that's inside of Myrn has been kind of like guiding these guys along the way. This, of course, leads to Peacemaker and Vigilante being in Peacemaker's trailer home, where they are actually talking to the Goth butterfly from earlier in the show, and they try to get some answers. Of course, they're stopped because Detective Song, who has been this character kind of linked to Peacemaker's dad, Augie, as she's trying to piece together how Augie she's trying to figure out a connection between Augie and the death of the prostitute that Peacemaker was banging in the first episode, and trying to find out how his prince, and pretty much trying to find the real connection as to what really happened, because she doesn't buy that Augie was involved in that, since Augie, he's trying to get himself off the hook as well, but he's also being extraordinarily racist with this cop. But eventually, Detective Song goes to her uncle, who's a judge, and she's able to get Augie released from prison. And once Augie gets released from prison, his main goal now is to pretty much kill his son for framing him in a way. So that's pretty much the main conflict is the father versus son. With the alien stuff, also another main conflict that's going to be coming into shape now, especially when you get to the end of episode 6. When you get towards the end of episode 6, the Goth butterfly has now possessed Detective Song, and now she's working with another cop named Locke, who's also been possessed by a butterfly. They are now in possession of of Amanda Waller's fake evidence of Peacemaker linking him to the alien invasion, and now everyone's going to be out to get Peacemaker because now it's made public. So, yeah, the last 2 episodes are shaping up to be really, really good. Also, side note, I liked the beginning of episode 6 with Peacemaker at a show and tell. That was hilarious. So, yeah, really liking the show. Can't wait to see how the last 2 episodes play out. Okay, the last 2 episodes of Peacemaker's first season I thought were actually really good and do a good job at wrapping up the 2 big storylines of the show. So let's waste no time and let's get right into it. Episode 7 focuses solely on setting up the season finale with the aliens, but also Peacemaker wrapping up his rivalry with his father, the White Dragon. I think the overall build-up to the final confrontation was really, really well done, but I think the overall fight scene between Peacemaker and his dad, to me, was kind of a letdown. I would have had to go on for maybe 2 or 3 more extra minutes and actually let them have a full-on hand-to-hand combat scene. But what we did get, I enjoyed it and I liked it a lot. And like I said, I like the whole build-up to it with White Dragon and his army trying to hunt down Peacemaker in the woods. I thought all that stuff was really well done and very well handled. I also like the beginning of the episode in which we get more gaps filled into to Peacemaker's story. So the reason why Peacemaker is the way he is because he had a very good relationship with his older brother Keith. it was his brother Keith that got him into heavy metal music. However, one day, by orders of their dad, they were doing like a bare knuckle brawl contest, and Chris accidentally killed his brother Keith, and this is what causes his dad to have pretty much a hatred and dislike for him. And this is where his father Augie pretty much started shaping Chris into be the person that he is now. So I like all that stuff. It further cements that Chris is just an innocent kid who was warped by his demented father, and that actually makes the rivalry between them even more personal because Augie is a sadistic son of a bitch who pretty much used the death of his own son to warp the mind of his other son. That is some fucked up shit. Like, that is real fucked up shit when you actually break it down and look at it. It's no wonder why Peacemaker is the way he is. Why he's a good-hearted guy with a douchebag attitude, because his father is just a sick son of a bitch. Which is why his death was really, really satisfying. But I do like the conflict of it. I do like that, that Peacemaker's dad is going to forever be in his head, forever giving himself doubt, make him questioning himself. I thought all that stuff is really good. Now on the flip side, you got the stuff with Leota and Herkut and Manu as they're pretty much gathering up to try and take down the big alien, which is being described as the cow, basically. Of course, Manu in this episode, he is killed off by Song, who was possessed by one of the butterflies. And then Judo Master comes out of nowhere and has a actually relatively entertaining fight scene with Horkut. Honestly, truthfully, I think the Judo Master Horkut fight scene lasted longer than it should, and I would have shaved off a minute or two off that fight and gave it to Peacemaker and White Dragon, so that way they can have a much more extended fight scene. That's just how I would have handled it personally, but I thought Judo Master and Horkut had a pretty entertaining fight, and Leota comes in to save the day by tasing his ass. So I like all that stuff. I thought that was a lot of fun. But yeah, episode 7 is basically setting the pieces up for the big finale, which is episode 8. The team are now on the way to take down the cow, the big alien. Of course, as what happened in previous episode, Chris does not like Leota because Chris was betrayed by Leota after Chris viewed her as a friend. So pretty much Leota has got to try and earn that back. And throughout the course of the season finale, the whole team comes together. You got some shenanigans here and there with Economist being himself, Vigilantes being vigilante. But it all boils down to pretty much Chris and Leota being the two that pretty much save the day, which they do. But in doing so, Horkut nearly almost dies because she gets attacked by I forget who attacks Horkut, but she pretty much gets shot to shit. And if it wasn't for Leota, she would have been done for. Yeah. Despite some cringy stuff here and there, Leota is one of the best characters in the show. I really like her a lot. Her and Peacemaker are really the heart of the show. Like, Leota is pretty much this person who is in a position that she doesn't want to be in. But I like how in the season finale she gets past all that, and after saying that she's not right for the job because she can't take it, when she sees one of her teammates in peril like Herkut, that's where she grows the spine and she's like, yes, I can do this. Bet one of the best developed characters in the show was Leota. I liked her a lot, and I hope that she comes back for season 2 and you get more expansion on that, because it's good stuff. It's really good stuff. Like, James Gunn did a really good job at writing out these characters and making them as likable as possible, especially Horkut, because she started out as being annoying, but as the show progressed, Horkut actually does have humanity to her, and she does kind of have a little bit of a thing for Peacemaker, and you see that develop throughout the entire show. So I'm actually open to the idea of them eventually having a romance, but I'm glad that Gunn didn't shoot his wad in the first season. He left it open enough where it could happen in season 2, which is what I would prefer. Like earn it, don't just have it happen right away. But yeah, after the big giant alien is defeated, Horkut, she's almost dying. The Justice League make a little cameo. Peacemaker disses them, and we get Ezra and we get douchebag Miller and Jason Momoa reprising the roles as Flash and Aquaman. Aquaman's appearance is pretty much to cap off this running gag where everyone starts a rumor about Aquaman fucking fish. Like, that joke wasn't funny when I first heard it. It wasn't funny throughout the show, but at least you got Jason. At least you got Aquaman to actually pay it off in a way. And then you have Flash giving his 2 cents, and Barry just like saying "Go fuck you," and then Arthur saying "Go fuck yourself." So the Justice League cameo with Aquaman, with mostly Aquaman and Flash, and then Superman and Batman in the background, that was okay. But the whole epilogue I thought was actually really well handled, like very well handled. Leota and Peacemaker, they come to grips, they reconcile in a way, and I like how Peacemaker acknowledges her as her second best friend after Eagly, who had an Eagly, Peacemaker's mascot. He had a lot of entertaining moments throughout the entire show, and the bond between Peacemaker and Eagly is actually pretty cool, and I like it a lot. Just like I love the stuff with Vigilante and Economos. Those two just bounce off of one another just flawlessly. A lot of the bantering is actually pretty hilarious, especially when Vigilante wants to kill a bunch of doctors because they saw their identity, and Economos and everyone's just questioning him like, "What are you doing?" Really, what are you doing? I thought that was good stuff. And I also like Economist in episode 7 too, because he has this cool scene where he guns down a lot of the White Dragon's men, which is another badass scene for him. So yeah, I overall think season 1 ended on a high spot. It ended the right way. Leota pretty much ousted her mother and Task Force X publicly, saying that it's claiming it's inhumane. So I'd like to see what that direction that will take with the upcoming Waller show that James Gunn announced at the end of January. So yeah, Peacemaker season 1 did a good job at tying up the storylines and then setting up for its future. So I like it. So after watching all 8 episodes of Peacemaker's first season, my overall grade for it is a solid 8 out of 10. I recommend this show. Is it perfect? No. It does have some things here and there that I would have changed. There are some jokes that go on way too long when they can be chopped out. And yeah, it does be in your face sometime with a lot of its messaging. Like, even though I praised the relationship with Leota and her wife, I mean, they do have moments where they kind of hammer it in a little, where they hammer it in more than they should, but they never cross the line to the point where it's absolutely cringe. It's mostly done at the expense of a joke, particularly with Vigilante in some scenes. But overall, I enjoyed the show, and I like it a lot. James Gunn did a really good job at adapting his style to to television, and it works. Like, it really does work. So yeah, 8 out of 10 for the first season of Peacemaker. Let me know your thoughts in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I will check you back next time for more.